You're listening to KOUG Radio. Listen live online at KOUGradio.org.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Takes with Dom. I'm your host, Dominic Persinger, live with the KOUG Radio. So today we are live for the first time. That's right, this is our official first live episode, and I'm happy to announce that I have two guests here with me today in town this week from Boise State University. I'll let them introduce themselves. Go away, guys.
What's up, guys? My name is Ben Jones, and I'm from right here in Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, my name is Cooper Nocera, and I'm from Apple Valley, California.
So today we'll be going over some March Madness Sweet 16 games, and for today and tomorrow, some of the 2024 Super Bowl contenders and the UFC fights this Saturday. So starting off with March Madness. So tonight we got a 6:45 tip-off Pacific time tonight. We got UCLA number 2 versus number 3 Gonzaga. So what are you guys' first kind of takes on this game?
Firstly, we think right back to the rematch of the Final Four game from 2021. Obviously, Jalen Suggs ending that on an epic game winner from half court. That was an awesome game. They were going back and forth, really intense game. And I think I'm really just excited to see, these two teams, battle it out again. Probably the best two teams on UCLA this year, or best two players, Jaime Jaquez and Tyker Campbell. They were on that team too, and they saw their Final Four run end at the buzzer from half court. So that should put a chip on their shoulder tonight, and I'm excited to see them try to get some revenge.
Yeah, I mean, I really just like the experience that UCLA has naming those two guys. And I think the only guy that really remains on Gonzaga is Drew Timme. And he will get his points, his rebounds, all that. It just depends where else are they going to get the scoring from. Another big key in this game for me is Adam Bona, who is UCLA's center. He's questionable. And if he's not in the game, that's 5 less fouls for UCLA. And I feel like they could have trouble in the paint if that happens.
Yeah, do you think they kind of have trouble containing Drew Timme if Bona's not playing pretty much?
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup. I think Jaime Jaquez could do a decent job. He just doesn't have the size that Drew Timme has.
Yeah, that's a big headline there. If Bona's out, like Coop said, that's 5 less fouls they can throw at Timme. Timmy's a guy, you got to throw more than one guy at him. He's that good of a player. So that's definitely a big headline for this game too.
Yeah, and I think one of the X factors for me in this game is going to be Amari Bailey, considering that Jalen Clark, who is their third best scorer and their best defender. I think Amari Bailey is going to be a huge key part of this game. He's been playing good in the tournament, and I think he came in as like one of the top 5 freshmen in the country. And I think this could really improve his draft stock, maybe in top 10, top 15 to the NBA draft.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity for him, a freshman on an experienced team, if he can come in and get his buckets like he has been able to, and really, like Coop said, step in that Jalen Clark role, that's going to be huge for his draft stock, and it's also going to be huge for UCLA. They really need him for that.
Would you guys almost kind of say he's kind of like that Dante DiVincenzo role with that Nova went on that run? I just think kind of like, maybe not quite straight like Dante, but just like that role where they kind of, blew up in the tournament and got that, Final Four player of the tournament.
Definitely. And in more recent memory, I think of Remy Martin last year from Kansas,
that's a good example,
kind of came into his role, into the conference tournament. And then, he was a big X factor on that team. So I think of Amari Bailey can kind of play that secondary scorer role and really fit into there. I think that's huge, like I said, for his draft stock, and 2 for UCLA's chances here.
Yeah, I think you just look at the past couple champions in the NCAA tournament over the past couple of years, always have some guys step up. And I think for UCLA to get there, it is going to have to be an Amari Bailey type player because of the injuries that they've had in the past couple of weeks.
All right, those are some great takes, you guys. So who do you guys have winning this game?
I'm going to take UCLA. I like their experience. I like how they have multiple different guys they can go to. Gonzaga this year, I don't like their guards as much as they've had in recent years. I like UCLA.
Yeah, I'm going to go with UCLA as well. I feel like Drew Timme does have the slight edge on Jaime Jaquez, but it's not super big in my opinion. But I do think Tyker Campbell does have a big advantage in this game over Gonzaga's guard. So I like UCLA.
All right, good picks, you guys. So we got the consensus picks on UCLA for tonight. So moving up for tomorrow, we got a 3:30 tip-off. I believe it's the first tip-off tomorrow at 3:30 Pacific time. We got number 1 Alabama taking on number 5 San Diego State. Now, from previous episodes, I've told you guys I got Bama in the finals, so this is probably a little bit of a nail-biter. So this is going to be a thrilling game. It's the SEC champ versus the Mountain West champ. So yeah, Ben, Coop, what are your guys' takes here for this game as well?
Yeah, Coop and I have seen a lot of San Diego State these past couple of years because we do go to Boise State, same conference, those two teams kind of been at the top of the conference. San Diego State's a good team, not, since they play on the West Coast and they're not in a Power Six conference, maybe not as many people know about them, but it's a good team. They defend really well, and it's a pretty tough matchup for Alabama because San Diego State does have a bunch of really good perimeter defenders and guys down low that are really going to be able to kind of, you know, get on Brandon Miller.
Yeah, with San Diego State, I just love their defense. They get after you. They get lots of steals. The thing about them is they sometimes just have trouble scoring, and that could be a big key in this game. But I do like their defense and their experience since they are a really old team compared to Alabama, who their best player is a true freshman.
Definitely. I think a big concern for San Diego State here is, they're going against the number one overall seed in March Madness. They're going against the Alabama team who had a tough non-conference schedule, and then they played in the SAC. But for San Diego State, they're actually kind of the opposite. They have not been nearly as tested as Bama. The best team that they've played so far this year is Arkansas, and they lost that game. So it's going to be interesting to see how San Diego State, kind of steps up to, by far the best team that they've played all season.
Yeah, I do think since they did have a couple day break from the first weekend of the games, San Diego State will do a pretty good job on Brandon Miller and will try to take him away as best they can. So I think for Alabama, they're just going to have someone step up. And I think that X factor is Javon Quinterly, because the difference in this Alabama team when he's on his game compared to turning the ball over, they're just a completely way different team.
Yeah, San Diego State, they're going to throw a lot of guys. They're going to trap Brandon Miller. They're going to make other guys score. So those secondary scores for Alabama are going to be huge. If those guys are hitting their shots, Alabama is going to be really tough to beat moving forward.
Yeah, no, Ben, I agree with that. Alabama loves to shoot threes, so that's going to be just a big, huge part of this game is how does San Diego State guard that? They can't leave them open, got to close out and all that stuff.
Do you guys think there's a chance that San Diego State pulls up off the upset here, or do you think it's kind of all Bama all the way?
I'm not going to give San Diego State no chance. I think they're a good team. I think they have a chance, but I'm taking Alabama. I think Alabama should win this game. They're the number one team for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They have a top 3 NBA pick on their team, experienced coach, other good experienced guards. I'll take Bama, but I'm not going to count San Diego State out. They're a feisty little team.
Yeah, I do think this will be a pretty close game just because of San Diego State's defense. I think they'll do a pretty good job on all of Bama's guys. It just depends how they're scoring the ball. If San Diego State wants to have a chance, Matt Bradley is going to have a huge game. He's going to have to be hitting his threes, passing the ball to others. But I like Bama. But close.
All right, so we got a consensus pick again, 2-0 for Bama. And I think this game in particular actually makes me really excited to watch just because of Brandon Miller. Because as a Blazer fan, pretty much, the team's tanking at this point. So, you want that, top 3 pick. I think, you have kind of like the sexy pick with Victor Wembanyama as the number 1 pick. But Brandon Miller's kind of that sneaky pick in the top 5 where if the Blazers luck out and get that, that'd be an awesome pick. So all Blazers fans, tune into this Bama game tomorrow. So moving up to the last March Madness game we're going to be breaking down for the Sweet 16. We got number 2 Texas taking on number 3 Xavier tomorrow night at 6:45 Pacific time. So again, what's your guys' breakdown for this game and who do you guys like?
I'll tell you who I like. I like Sir Jabari Rice. Coolest name in college basketball. Best 6 man in college basketball. He's going to come off the bench for this team, but he has maybe a bigger impact than anyone else for this Texas team. He's just a scorer. He comes off the bench. He scores. And when he gets hot, he's really hard to stop. We saw that in the first round against Colgate. Colgate has been a team that's been in recent tournament games. They played Wisconsin close last year, and they were shooting it well against Texas. But Sir Jabari Rice, I think he hit like 6 or 7 threes that game. So if he gets going, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, Sir Jabari Rice, he's a dog. But I think the problem for Texas is, other than him from the 3-point line, they have struggled in the tournament. They've only hit 6 combined threes, and those only came from 2 other guys. Like against their last game, they were 1 for 13 from 3, and I think that could catch up with them in this round. I think one of the big matchups for me is Rodney Terry versus Sean Miller. I like the experience of Sean Miller in this tournament compared to Rodney Terry, who came in at the middle of the season. And I think that could be a big key for this game.
Definitely. And like I said, Texas has their shooters, Serge Ibaka, Rice, Marcus Carr. They've got a bunch of guys who can light it up. Timmy Allen, too, another transfer from New Mexico State. But on the flip side, Xavier has some shooters, too. I like Adam Kunkel. He really got it going in that game against Kennesaw State, and he did pretty good against Pittsburgh, too. And Colby Jones as well. He's been a consistent player all season. So this is a game I could see getting into the 80s or 90s. If both teams are shooting the ball well like they really can, this is going to be a really entertaining, high-scoring game.
Yeah, and I think the big X factor on the court for Xavier is Jack Nungy, who's listed at 7-1. And I think he could have a big game, offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, because the biggest guy in Texas starting lineup is only 6'9". And I think that rebounding could be a huge part of this game.
All right, so you guys are you guys split here for your picks for this game then?
I think we are. I like Texas here. I think Texas has defended the three well thus far, and that's how Xavier likes to win their games. They shoot threes. Nunji gets those boards down there and just kicks it back out. I think Texas has a plethora of scores on offense. They don't rely on one or two guys. They have a bunch of different guys they can go to. I think they defend the three well. I think they're going to win this game against Xavier.
Yeah, I like Xavier in a very close competitive game down to the wire. I think for me, Jack Nungy, I think he's just going to have a huge game. And I really like his height down there. And then Sean Miller, I think, will drop some big plays down the stretch. And then another thing for me is Texas. What Marcus Carr are we going to get? Are we going to get Texas Marcus Carr or Minnesota Marcus Carr? He's been known to turn the ball over in big games. So I think that's going to be a big key here for Texas is how does he pass, hold on to the ball.
Awesome. Great picks, you guys. Hopefully, you guys both can't go 3 for 3, but hopefully one of you guys goes 3 for 3. So next up for the end of our March Madness segment, we're going to talk about some teams to stay away from for this weekend, or sorry, for the next 2 days. So personally, even though I have Alabama going to the finals, I just think from hearing all the breakdown and predictions for the San Diego State game, I just think their defense can be too lanky to where I think Bama probably pulls out that game, but don't trust them. I think it could be a really tough matchup, and I think like we've heard, they defend three well, and Bama kind of chucks up threes. So if they're not shooting well, it could be a really ugly first half, and you never know where that game could end up going.
Yeah, I'm going to say Arkansas for my team to stay away from because this is a team that is very well coached. They're very talented. They just beat the defending champs last year in the same situation against number 1 Gonzaga. They beat them. So this is a team I think people look at and they're like, okay, this is a team that can start to make a run, which is totally valid. But I do not like their matchup against UConn. I think UConn's got too many good big guys. They're playing a really good ball. They've had 2 tough matchups in the first and second round. They took care of Iona, and then they took care of St. Mary's too, who's another good team. So I think UConn's that good. It's not that, I'm shying away from Arkansas. It's not because, they're a bad team or whatever. I just don't like their matchup against UConn at all. So I'm not picking them, even though that might be a popular Cinderella team.
Yeah, and for my team to stay away from, it is going to be Miami. They have had some tough battles in this tournament so far, like the first round with Drake, which is a really good competitive game. But I think for that game for me is Drake was winning that game the whole game, and they kind of fell apart in those last 4 to 5 minutes, and Miami found a way to go on a run and come back and win. And then in their second round game against Indiana, which is a team I wasn't super high on going into the tournament, they did beat them pretty handedly, so I will give them that. I'm just afraid that they have really good guards, but I'm not sure how they'll be rebounding.
All right. Thanks for the March Madness segment, guys. So now we're moving on to NFL. So we're going to talk about some of our 2024 Super Bowl contenders. And I know this is kind of early, but still there's top contenders established for next year already. So we're going to talk about them. So starting off, let's just mention our number 1 contender for next year. And I think we've all agreed that it's the Kansas City Chiefs, guys.
Yeah, as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, I don't really see another team that's fitting for number 1. They still have Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, and they still have Andy Reid. So, yeah, I love them still.
Just a quick warning, you guys. Coop is a Chiefs fan, so there's a little bit of bias there, but me and Ben help a little bit with the bias because we also think the Chiefs are going to win. So there's that.
They're the defending champs for a reason. They're the team to beat. Like Coop said, you have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce on your offense, you're going to be tough to beat. I am interested to see what they do at wide receiver. They let McCole Hardman walk for a cheap contract. They let Juju Smith-Schuster walk for a cheap contract. I think they're going to make a big move there.
D-Hop.
I think they're going to make a big move, and that's why I'm taking them number one. D-Hop, definitely. I could see D-Hop. I know people have talked about Odell Beckham Jr. So, I think if, they've already got such a good team, if they add a guy like that, I don't see how they don't go back to back.
Yeah, I see them. From recent news, I don't think they're really going after DeAndre Hopkins anymore. I think they're going to make a big move up in the draft and try to either get a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba or a guy like Quentin Johnson that can really stretch the field.
I think their secondary is pretty underrated as well. Shout out Jalen Watson, Wazoo grad. And they also got, Willie Snead, Trent McDuffie. I think they have an exciting secondary. I think every year seems like their defense, like people underrate it for some reason. And then you get later in the year and they're the best defense in the NFL and it never makes sense. But yeah, I think their secondary is a big part of their defense, I would say.
They have guys step it up, definitely. And going back to the whole wide receiver thing, they have let guys walk. And even if they don't make a big move, let's remember last offseason, they lost Tyreek Hill and they didn't really replace him with someone.
1 year ago today.
Yeah, 1 year ago today. And they didn't really replace him with that big of a name. I mean, Juju Smith, I guess, but he even missed some games. He wasn't that good. And they still won the Super Bowl. So maybe Mahomes can just do it with anyone. Maybe, you could stick a CCYF receiver out there and Mahomes is winning.
Shout out Clark County football to you guys.
I do think on the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs, I still think they need to find a way to replace Frank Clark because his playoff production has been so crazy these past couple of years. And they have targeted that in free agency, but I think it'll be interesting to see where they attack that in the draft as well.
Okay, so let's move on to number 2. I guess we're all divided here, so we have all of our little own reasoning. I love the Bengals here. I think it's finally their year where they're going to do it. I love their defense. I think this is also the last year where they're not going to be able to. They're going to extend Burrow, obviously, after this year. They're probably going to be able to keep all 3 of their talented receivers and Mixon and their backup running back's name.
Oh, P. Ryan.
Yeah,
He went to
P.
the
Ryan.
Broncos.
Completely forgot about that. Here I am on a sports podcast, guys, not even knowing where the running back's at, but I guess it's not
He's a
Mixon.
backup. He's a backup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the Bengals here. I think the Orlando Brown signing was huge. Sorry about that, Coop.
It's all good. We got Juwan Taylor.
Yeah, I like that. I like that addition. But yeah, I love the Bengals. They've been obviously competitive the last 2 years. This is kind of like their breakthrough year where they're going to make the Super Bowl and probably actually beat someone this time.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Niners for my team because I think the NFC is wide open this year. I don't think the Eagles repeat. The NFC champion the past several years has had a bit of a hangover. I kind of see that coming from the Eagles. Rodgers is probably going to the Jets from what it sounds like. Brady's retired. I think the NFC is wide open. And honestly, if the Niners didn't have 4 quarterbacks get hurt last year, they could have made it anyway. So as long as the Niners are able to keep their first, second, and third string quarterbacks healthy, I think they're the favorites to win the NFC.
Who do you think starts at quarterback them though?
Also, I think Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance should be their starter this year. I know he wasn't great last year. I know he got hurt, or he wasn't great that first game against the Bears, but he's still a young guy. He's still got to let him develop. I mean, they gave up a bunch of draft ammunition to go up and get him. They traded from the number 12 to the number 3 pick to go get him. So you have to play him. It's going to be his 3rd NFL season. You have to play him.
Yeah, and he's only had 2 starts up to this point. I don't think you could really give up on a number 3 overall pick after 2 starts.
As good as Brock Purdy played last year, he played amazing, but you can't give up on the number 3 pick that early for a guy who's drafted in the 7th round. Yeah.
Didn't who they just pick up? They just picked up a 3rd QB, didn't they?
Yeah, they got Darnold.
Darnold,
Sam
that was
Darnold.
it. Yeah, I think he can maybe be a little sneaky this year. You never know.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Darnold, but I think, we've seen really any quarterback go there and find success. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo looked like Tom Brady in that offense. So I think I kind of like that. I like that. It's a good security blanket. So now they have Purdy, Darnold, and Trey Lance, bearing 3 quarterbacks getting injured for the 2nd season in a row. One of those guys should be able to get the job done.
I'll feel bad for 49ers fans if that happens again.
Shh.
I love the Niners too, but my pick is going to be the Eagles. I like them to go back to back because I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. They brought back a lot of their big key interior guys. And I'm interested to see where they go in the draft since they do have the number 10 pick and the 30th pick in the draft. So I think they could add some big key pieces right there. And I think last year in the draft, all their guys from the first 3 rounds they drafted didn't really play that much because they did have older veteran guys in those positions. But now they're going to get a chance to play, and I'm excited to see what those guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. To move on to a third pick now. I got the Jacksonville Jaguars here. That's probably a little bit of a, I guess they say popular pick after this past year, but they kind of just jumped up with the rankings. But T Law is insane. He'll be a Pro Bowler again, maybe even All Pro, maybe even an MVP candidate for all I know. Like he's gonna keep improving. He's so young. He's only a year older than me, 2 years older than you guys. It's just that's kind of crazy to think. Um, I love the Calvin Ridley revenge year. Don't sports gamble, you guys. It's so bad for you. But yeah, I love the Calvin Ridley revenge year, along with all the rest of the receiving core. Did Evan Ingram resign? Was he a free agent?
I think they franchise tagged him.
Okay, yeah, I love that. Even as a Giants fan, it's unfortunate to see Ingram thrive somewhere else, but it's cool to see that they like picked up a versatile tight end for their offense, and they have, I believe, 4 decent receivers that would probably all be a top 2 guy in most teams. So yeah, I love their offense. It's pretty deep. Their defense is iffy at times, but I think they're gonna have like shootout games this year, and I could see them like smug into the Super Bowl.
I like that. I like that. I'm going to take another Florida team for my last pick. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins. You know, I'm still a little suspect on Tua as a quarterback, especially considering he gets hurt pretty much every game he's in. But I like the coach. I like the receiving core. I like, Teron Armstead's a great left tackle. I like what they did specifically with the defense. Outside the quarterback situation, we knew the offense was good, but the defense are bringing in Vic Fangio, one of the great defensive minds. They're bringing in Jalen Ramsey, great cornerback, and they just have a bunch of other dogs on their defense. They signed the linebacker from Tennessee, David Long. He's a good player, underrated player. So I like the Dolphins. I think as long as Tua can play within himself and stay healthy, I think that's the team that nobody wants to play.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I love the Vic Fangio hire because we saw what he did with those Broncos defenses a couple years ago. And they were talented with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, but this Dolphins defense has an insane amount of talent. And it'll be interesting to see with what he does with it. It wouldn't surprise me if they have the best defense in the NFL next year. And for my pick, I know I'm an AFC West guy, but going to have to go with the Chargers. Big fan of Justin Herbert. And I think the Kellen Moore hire is really going to pay dividends for their offense. We saw in that playoff game against the Jags, they choked the big lead. But I think this year, if they had Kellen Moore, I think that game would end up a little bit differently. Also they still have Joey Bosa, Derwin James. Just got to hope those guys stay healthy. It'll be interesting to see where they go in the draft. I think they need to try to find a deep threat wide receiver. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go like Jalen Hyatt. Be interesting to see what they do with Eckler, if he gets traded or not.
Coop, I was going to bring that up. Eckler, is he gone? Is he going to stay?
I think he's probably gone. I don't see them paying him,
Yeah.
which if he's gone, I would look out for them taking Bijan Robinson. I've heard that's a big rumor. He would change that offense.
That would be a scary offense with him.
I've been going through like the list of the league, and like I don't know what team Egler fits on at all. Like I don't
Right.
know who's gonna afford him, who wants him. Like
Yeah.
it
I
doesn't
heard the
make sense.
Bears because they have a lot of cap space and they don't necessarily have a true running back one. But we'll see. That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Where does Eckler go? Does he stay? And if they do trade him, what do they get in return for him?
And maybe after the draft, that kind of clears up. Maybe there's some teams thinking they're going to get Bijan Robinson and he goes 10 picks before them. So I think after the draft, we might know more about it. But for now, it sounds like Eckler wants out of LA and he doesn't really have a landing spot right now. So something to keep an eye on for them. But that's a replaceable position. I'm sure they can find someone that can give them similar production to Eckler for pretty cheap.
Not even Bijan Robinson. I love the running backs on day 2 as well. Like
Yeah.
Zach Charbonnet,
Sure. Yeah.
Tajay Spears, any of them. There's a lot of good running backs in this
Alabama
draft.
guy, Gibbs from
Oh, yeah.
Alabama. Yeah.
Who
Definitely.
he would. I could see him fitting well considering how much they do throw to Eckler, and Gibbs is such a good receiving back.
Definitely.
No, yeah, and then on to our sleeper picks. So this is kind of like separate than our top 3. It's just a little bit of like an underrated team we think could make it. I mean, probably a little more of like a dark horse, probably less likely, but we'll see. So my first one, I got the Denver Broncos. Everyone needs to stop being so rude to Russell Wilson. I know he had a horrible year, but he had a horrible line. I think the Broncos had the most injuries in the league, I want to say, or right there at the top. They had a lot of penalties. Nathaniel Hackett's a terrible coach. I don't even think he's that great of a coordinator, let's be real. So yeah, I just think the Denver Broncos have really just in free agency the last couple of weeks, they've really turned things around. I mean, they spent over 100 million in a day on their offensive line, which is huge for protecting Wilson in the long run. Uh, I think pairing Sean Payton, another former Super Bowl champ with Russell Wilson, they could have some kind of scary dynamic offense. I think the receiving core has been there the whole time. They've just been needing, you know, time for the QB to throw on the right QB to throw it to them. But unfortunately, they haven't really had that till now. So yeah, man, I like you know, is Tim Patrick still there?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
he just got hurt last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think
yeah, so use that for the year.
another guy a lot of people are forgetting about is Javonte Williams. He got hurt last year, and he had such a good rookie year. I think he could have a big year this year.
Mhm.
I agree with that. Yeah, and I like what the Broncos did with their offensive line. They went out and they spent money like they needed to. They got Mike McGlinchey and they got Ben Powers. So those are two. I mean, they spent more than 10 million a year on both those guys individually. So I think that's exactly where they needed to go in free agency. So I think those were big pickups for them, and I think they'll be much improved from where they were last year for sure.
Yeah, that's just such an interesting division. So many good teams.
A lot of good teams there.
What did you guys think about the Zach Allen sign? I thought that was kind of an overpay, unless I'm wrong.
I think he's a pretty good player. I liked it. Maybe a little bit too much money, but
What was
In-
the money on it again?
I'm looking at it. It's 45 for 3 years. I
Yeah.
don't think he's a 15-a-year guy at DN. I mean,
He's
maybe 12.
Yeah, he's a good player, but he's not worth that.
no, but you always got to overpay in free agency if you
It's
get
true.
some of these guys. So
It's true. We'll see. And they lost Bradley Chubb. They need someone to
It's
get.
funny they traded Chubb,
And they
but
don't
I
have a-
guess they got a pick out of it.
They don't have a first round pick either, so they need to overspend there, I think, which is what they did. But we'll see how it is. He was
He
pretty good for
actually
the
fleeced them.
for the Cardinals. Yeah, for the
They-
Cardinals.
they do have a first round pick, don't they?
Do they?
The Dolphins.
Yeah, the Dolphins
yeah,
gave him
they
that
do.
pick for Chubb.
That's right.
So
That's
pretty
right.
much they turned Chubb into another DN and got a first round pick for it. So
Yeah,
But didn't they trade that for Sean Payton?
they did.
they did. You're right.
Oh, that's
so
right.
they have no picks, but they got Sean Payton and Zach Allen, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're my sleeper.
So my sleeper team is the New York Jets, because the Jets were looking really good last year until Breece Hall got hurt, until Zach Wilson started playing, like as bad as he is. And now they're going to get the man. They're going to get Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they're going to have to trade that much for him. And they had a good free agency too. They got Alan Lazard. I like their secondary. I like CJ Mosley on their defense. I thought Quinnen Williams was one of the best D tackles last year. I think, they still have the 13th overall pick. There's someone they could get there that could really help them this year. I think they could make that Rodgers trade without giving up that pick. And wherever Rodgers is, that's a team you got to keep an eye on. I think if he's in New York, that's going to be a really, really good team this year. And it's, no one's really talking about them right now. I mean, I guess people are talking about them because they're about to get Rodgers, but when was the last time we were like seriously like, oh, the Jets could be like a sleeper Super Bowl team? It's been a while. So I have to shout the Jets.
I also love the wide receiver acquisitions they made. Alan Lazard, just a good guy to have overall. He's such a good run blocker,
Yeah.
so that could pay really big dividends for them. And then a guy like McCole Hardman, who didn't really play a lot last year because he was injured most of the year, but he's a really good red zone weapon, just running him on jet sweeps, find a way to get
Don't
him
make
the
that a
ball.
joke. The Jets are going to run a lot of jet sweeps this year, guys.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then for my sleeper pick, I have the Detroit Lions. I love the free agency moves they've made this offseason, getting CJ Gardner Johnson, Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, really help out that secondary, because I do feel that was their biggest weakness last year on their defense. I'm a pretty big fan of Jared Goff, and I just like their weapons overall. And I do think Jameson Williams is going to take a big step this year. And they have, is it the 6th overall pick?
They do.
Yeah, which I think that's a really interesting pick to see what they decide
Think
to
so.
do. You
Quarterback.
draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
You draft someone for your defense, like a Jalen Carter, maybe a corner. I could see what's from Oregon?
Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, Christian Gonzalez. He's going to be really good. I could see them going there too. So it's really going to be really interesting to see what they do in the draft.
It's going to be interesting for quarterback, especially because, like Ku mentioned, there are different positions like cornerback, defensive line, maybe an offensive lineman that kind of fit their identity. It's kind of what they need on this year's team. But the 6th overall pick, they're not going to be in a situation like this again. This is going to be a good team moving forward. they only have this pick because of the trade they made with the Rams. And this is a good quarterback class. You have 4 guys that I think are worth a top 10 pick. So if one of those guys is still there at 6, I wouldn't be surprised if they found a future successor for Jared Goff.
Yeah, the guy I think I see fitting there, I see Will Levis. I could totally see them taking Will Levis, and I feel like he'd be good for them.
Definitely. In a dome too. You get a good quarterback there. I mean, Jared Goff was the last time they really had Stafford was there, but they were pretty bad. So, I kind of like what they're building. If they can get a good quarterback that can air it out, they got 2 good running backs now with DeAndre Swift and Montgomery. Man, watch out.
Yeah, no, I like Montgomery too. He's never really been behind a good offensive line. The Lions have some good guys up there.
Yeah, we like what they're building. I think we consensusly agree that Detroit's building something up there.
Oh yeah,
And then the rest of the teams in their division are falling off, except maybe not the Bears, but
yeah.
the Bears had the number 1 pick for a reason this year.
So the Detroit Lions as a sleeper pick. I like that one too.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate you guys' time. Even though you guys are from Boise State, there's no beef between Wazoo and Boise
No.
State, so I'll continue to root you guys on. Hope you guys continue to root Wazoo on.
Oh yeah, Boise State beating UW week 1 this year.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Yep.
Thanks for having us,
No one
Tom.
likes the Huskies,
Thank you.
guys. No one likes Huskies.
Go Cougs.
See you guys later. All right, so moving on, you guys, just to close out the show. Pretty much this Saturday, we're going to have a 13-fight UFC card. I'm going to break down just the main card really quick. Not nearly as many fights as last week, just because I don't want to talk to you guys for 40 minutes about the fights. So we got the 13-fight card. The prelims start at noon Pacific, and the main card's at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So this is UFC Fight Night, San Antonio. I'm really excited for this one. They're going to fill an arena in Texas, and this is between top 5 bantamweight contenders. Number 3, Marlon Chito Vera, and number 5, Corey Sandhagen. So this fight kind of pisses me off sometimes because this fight was supposed to be on my birthday last month, but because it was in the empty UFC Apex, fans were pretty much like, "Why are we not putting these guys in a full arena? Because they're they sell fights. These are really exciting fighters." And the UFC listened to the fans and pretty much gave them what they wanted, and they took it away from my birthday. So starting off on the main card, we got a featherweight 125 matchup between number 6 flyweight Alex Perez taking on number 9 Manel Kape. So Perez is 24-7, 6-3 in the UFC, and he's a formidable talent challenger. We got knocked out in 2 minutes by Figueiredo, and he's come off back-to-back losses, both inside 2 minutes. He's 31 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach, and 6 of his 7 losses come by way of finish, so that's something to note. Perez is a nasty striker. He has insane leg kicks, and he has even some finishes in the UFC by leg kicks, so that's pretty nasty. And he's pretty well rounded with 2 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 2 decisions in the UFC, but he's pretty much mainly a one-round fighter at this point in his career. So Kape, I'm really impressed by Kape. I've watched a little bit of his rise and highlights when he was outside the UFC. He's a phenomenal boxer. He's 18-6, 3-2 in the UFC with 2 knockouts, and he's come off 3 straight wins. His only losses are to future title challenger Alejandro Pantoja and other contender Mateusz Nicolau. So those are, I can't really knock him for those losses. His first 2 fights in the UFC versus top 5 guys. So he's 29 years old, pretty young, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. And he only has 1 finished loss in his entire career. So he has 6 losses, but 5 of them come by decisions. So he's pretty durable. And that 1 finished loss come by KOUG Horiguchi. And Horiguchi's in Bellator right now, and I believe he's fought for a belt in Bellator, so he's a pretty good fighter. Can't really knock him too much. And it was a 3rd-round submission with 30 seconds left in the fight. So Kape is definition of durable. And Kape also has 11 KOs to himself, so he has a lot of big punching power. I'd probably argue he probably has the biggest punching power in the entire division. He kind of has questionable IQ at times because he has high finishing ability. He can kind of get himself into like chaos because he's just trying to go for the finish really fast. So how I see this fight playing out, I don't trust Perez here at all. With only 2 fights in the last 3 years, he's gonna have some major ring rust, and then he hasn't fought since last summer either. And then Perez is decent at boxing. He's an okay wrestler, but horrible defensive grappler. I believe he's been submitted 5 times. That's embarrassing. Well, I'm sorry, I would also get submitted 5 times, but to be a UFC fighter, you shouldn't get submitted 5 times. So Kape, he'll have the power and the striking advantage here. And he also has great takedown defense. I think that's always huge with UFC guys who are great kickboxers, who don't get taken down, kind of like Israel Adesanya or something. So Kape's going to improve his durability here, and he's improved drastically since his 2 UFC losses, being on the 4-fight win streak. 3-fight win streak. I think Cop will have good output. He'll be able to land. He'll be really dangerous in this fight. I see Cop winning by like a knockout or maybe even a submission because Perez has been finished so many times. So I'm going with the first round finish, Cop over Perez. Any method of victory, submission or knockout, doesn't matter. I'm moving up to the second fight in the main card. We got a women's flyweight 125 fight between number 13 Macy Barber and number 11 Andrea Lee. So I'll start out with Barber. Barber's 11-2, 6-2 in the UFC with 3 straight decision wins. She's come on off the unanimous decision win over Jessica I, but everyone beats Jessica I, so I wouldn't give her too much props for that. She's only 24 years old, so super young. And the fact she already has 8 fights and she's only 24 is pretty impressive. She's 5'5" with a 65-inch reach, and she has 3 knockouts in the UFC, but that's kind of misleading because it was in her first 3 fights versus lower level competition. And now she's just getting decision wins versus, the higher competition that's less likely to get finished. And her last loss was to Alessa Grasso, and Grasso, as we saw a couple weeks ago, is now the flyweight champ. So that's not a bad loss. Being your last loss is now the champ. I think Barber gets a lot of takedowns, and she isn't really a crazy finisher. She mainly aims for control time. Lee, on the other hand, she's a way better striker. So she's 13-6, 5-4 in the UFC with 1 sub and 1 KO. And she's come off the decision loss to Vivian Araujo. Vivian Araujo is top 5, so also that's not that bad of a loss. So Lee's aging a little bit. She's 34 years old, and she's 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. And she's unfortunately 2-4 in her last 6, and she only has 1 fight, I think, in the last, I would say, year and a half, probably. Yeah, year and a half. So she's gonna be the way better striker and has higher volume in this matchup. And she's clean striking, but terrible takedown defense, which is huge here because Barber likes to take down people. So I see this fight playing out. So this will be pretty competitive. I see it kind of being similar to most women's MMA fights. The scorecards will indicate that at the end. The judges will not pretty much know what they're seeing. There'll be probably a split decision here where maybe 2 will swing Barber's way, 1 will swing Lee's way, maybe even a tie for all I know. I expect this fight to go to decision because both women lack like sheer power here. I think Barber's on a decent run because she's only 24. She's still improving, so I think I'd favor her here. Like, I don't love this pick at all because it's just a really competitive women's fight where, like I said, the scorecard can kind of go either way, and judges a lot of times screw up here. So I do see her losing. I do see Barber maybe losing 1 round, but she gets takedowns, maybe win into 2 other rounds. So let's go Barber at 29-28 decision. And move up to the feature fight. I'm so hyped about this fight, guys. Nate the Train Landwehr. Nate the Train in the UFC. He's one of the best on the mic. He got the nice Clarksville, Tennessee accent. And yeah, just Nate the Train, guys. He's one of my favorite fighters. His last fight was an absolute brawl. I would say probably a top 3 fight last year overall out of over 500 fights. So Landwehr is 16-4, 3-2 in the UFC on a 2-fight win streak. And he's come off the upset win over David Onama, where Onama won the first round, and then Nate just came back from the shadow realm and where he was pretty much knocked out and won the next 2 rounds. I believe the second round was like something ridiculous, like 56-8 with significant strikes. So yeah, Nate the Train's a beast. He's 34 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach, and he has 8 wins by knockout, 1 by sub. So you can kind of tell he's a brawler. He kind of takes one to give one. Like I said, he's kill or be killed. And usually most of his wins, he's doing it as an underdog. He gets hurt every fight and he gets bloodied up, but he pushes forward with wild pace, wild boxing. And 2 of his losses in the UFC come by KO. So, like I said, he's a very wild man, kill or be killed. And he's taking on Austin Lingo. Austin Lingo's first return in almost 2 years. So Austin Lingo's 9-1, 2-1 in the UFC. Coming off a 2-fight win streak, but he hasn't fought in 18 months. I believe his last fight was the McGregor and Poirier 3rd fight in summer of 2021. So yeah, he's 20 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. And the cool thing about this fight is he also has a very high pace, like stepping forward, kind of a pressure boxer. So when you have 2 pressure boxers going against each other, you're gonna have just a straight bloodbath. How I see this fight playing out is this is gonna be fight night. It has fight night written all over it. Nate's boxing is fun to watch. It's Nate the Train, guys. He's so wild, and like I said, he's fun on the mic. He has no care for his body, and I see him pretty much like that in this fight. I think Lingo has a little power too, so Nate will probably be a little more he'll be reckless here. Nate has a little bit of wrestling in his back game, so I think he uses that a little bit here because Lingo has horrible takedown defense. And I see these guys both being pretty competitive on the feet, but I could see some submission threats from Nate the Train just because I feel like every fight I've watched him fight, He throws up these nasty anaconda and guillotine chokes on the ground. He's only landed it once, I think, in the UFC, but he throws it up enough to where I could see him catching lingo here in like an anaconda choke. I'm gonna go with a late round sub by Nate. I won't be surprised by a knockout just because that's how he is, but let's go with the very unique pick of a Nate the Train by a third round sub. I just love Nate the Train, guys. Nate the Train in the UFC. So next we have the co-main event, the GOAT, one of the pioneers of the sport, Holly Holm at bantamweight. She's number 3 in the world, taking on number 6, Yana Santos. So Holm is 14-6. All of her losses come in the UFC, so she's 7-6 in the UFC. And she's come off kind of the controversial loss to Caitlin Vieira. I thought Holm won that fight, and I think a lot of people thought Holm won that fight, and we were expecting her to win that fight at the end. But then when they read the scorecards, Vieira somehow won. I didn't think Vieira won that fight. She just pinned Holm against the fence for 5 rounds when Holm did far more damage for at least 3 of the rounds. So yeah, Holm's getting older. She's 41 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. The one thing with Holm, though, is I don't think age really affects her that much. She hasn't massively declined yet. Her last fight indicated that. And yeah, she has excellent boxing. She probably had some of the cleanest boxing in the division for years now. And she's the former bantamweight champ, where she was the first person to beat Ronda Rousey. So that was kind of cool back in 2014 or 2015. One of those years, I know that. Then Santos, on the other hand, she's also 14-6. A little bit less of a UFC career, where she's only 4-3. She's coming off the knockout loss to Irene Aldana. It's not that bad of a loss because Irene Aldana is, top 3. And this was almost 2 years ago, so Santos come off like a 2-year layoff. So she's 33 years old, and she's 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. And she's also a former title challenger, where she challenged for the bantamweight bout in her debut, but it was a 3-minute knockout loss to Chris Cyborg. Not that bad of a loss. Chris Cyborg is one of the best in the world. Santos is pretty much a high volume striker, very little power. She has decent kicks in wrestling, so I can see her mix that in a little bit in this fight. So yeah, I think this is a good fight stylistically for Holm. I don't see Yana doing much, like being much of a finishing threat, if that makes sense. I see Holm having like plenty of opportunities in the boxing, and she'll have a lot of high output of her own. I pretty much see like Holm's pretty much come off of a win, even though it wasn't a win, controversial loss. I like her in this spot. I think it's probably actually a step down from her last fight too, so that's huge. I think give me Holm by decision here, 29-28. I think it'll be a competitive fight. Maybe Holm loses one round, but she'll win 2 of them by the striking. Now moving on to the main event and the last fight of the night for UFC San Antonio, we have bantamweight contenders number 3 Marlon Cheeto Vera taking on number 5 Corey Sandhagen. So start off with Cheeto. Cheeto's 27-1 with that one being a draw, and he's 14-6 in the UFC on a 4-fight winning streak. Come off the 4th round knockout of Dominic Cruz. Such a heartbreaking loss. But Marlon's 30 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. And he's very well rounded. He has 8 knockouts, 8 submissions. You always love to see kind of like that finishing ability where they can kind of do it all. So Cheeto's from Ecuador. He's kind of prioritizes that Muay Thai striking with very heavy hands. I'd probably say he probably has the heaviest hands for the division. He's probably the only person like in the bantamweight who can just knock you out one punch every fight. He usually gets outstruck in most of his fights. The last 3 fights, he got outstruck the whole time until he lands that kill shot, if you know what I mean. You can be losing the entire round, but you knock someone down, you just all of a sudden you stole that round, or he lands that late round knockout, and all of a sudden, who cares that he was losing on the scorecards because he just got the knockout and got the finish. So Sandhagen, on the other hand, he's 15-4, 8-3 in UFC, coming off the doctor stoppage win over Song Yadong. And Sandhagen is 30 years old, and he's really tall for the bantamweight division at 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. And he's also pretty well rounded with 7 knockouts and 3 submissions. So Corey is also one of my favorite fighters, so it's gonna be a pretty exciting card for me. He's a very active striker. He's fast. He's elusive, and he throws like a variety of strikes. He throws a lot of kicks, elbows, knees. He just kind of mixes it all in. He's a very dirty boxer. So I don't see this going like how Cheetah's last 3 fights went, like where he's losing all the rounds until he gets the knockout or gets the knockdown. Like Sandhagen's never been knocked out in his career. He's only been submitted once by the current champ, Aljamain Sterling. So the fact Sandhagen's never been knocked out, he has an incredible chin. I don't see Vera getting that knockout here. And the fact that I've said Vera's always losing, on the scorecards before it gets the knockout. If he doesn't knock out Sandhagen here, Sandhagen's going to win on the scorecards 10 times out of 10. So yeah, people love Cheeto as the dog here because, he keeps getting knockouts as the dog. Don't buy that. I think this is a weird matchup for him. Like I see I see Corey winning on the scorecards. I think Corey, without a doubt, wins the early rounds because Cheeto usually loses rounds 1 and 2 because he's kind of a slow starter. But then once it gets to later in the fight, Sandhagen's also big there because he trains in Aurora, Colorado, so he has that cardio there. I see Sandhagen winning almost every round, but it could be kind of close times. So let's go Sandhagen by like a close 49-46, 48-47 decision. And that's gonna wrap up the UFC San Antonio card. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm happy to have my first 2 guests on the show for Sports Takes with Dom. I'm Dominic Persinger for the KOUG Radio.